Hello, I'm Faith, and welcome to Faith's Take, where I talk about anything and everything that I find interesting. Today I'll be talking about my top 5 favorite Pixar movies, and I'm just gonna warn you guys right now, you'll probably lose some respect for me by the end of it, but that's okay. I just hope you stick around till the end. I'm gonna explain myself a little bit better. I just don't want to, spoil anything right off the bat about why I did and didn't choose a couple of things, and I'll have a fun announcement for a few videos coming up related to this list. Kind of using this as a springboard for those as well. So I really do hope you'll stick around, even if you're upset at me during this whole thing. So, I thank all of you in advance for sticking around that do, and I hope you enjoy it. So here it is, my top 5 favorite Pixar movies. This is one of the most fun Pixar movies in existence, and the one that my family rewatches the most. I find it to be one of the easiest to watch because it never tears your heart out like most Pixar movies. Now, most people judge this film right off the bat and only see a generic 1980s college movie, but I don't think that gives this anywhere near enough credit. While the plot is cookie-cutter, like most Pixar movies, putting it in the world of Monsters, Inc. gives it a new spin and keeps things interesting. Also, the animation is beautiful, the lighting is fantastic, the texture on the characters is detailed and varied, and my favorite part is the coloring. It's just so bright and fun to look at. But the best part is the characters. The new characters are funny and enjoyable, the antagonistic Dean is played wonderfully by Helen Mirren, and Mike and Sully are still interesting and likable, with great acting from Billy Crystal and John Goodman. Mike is actually my favorite character in the entire Pixar universe ever since the first Monsters, Inc., and I was really happy when I realized that he was the protagonist of this movie. I thought he was really funny in the first film, but he also had more depth than most Pixar comic relief sidekicks do. It's pretty rare that a film or even a single episode of a TV show that completely focuses on the sidekick will ever come off very well. Even Pixar has screwed it up. But this is one of those examples where it's done perfectly. Mike is so interesting and is given much more depth. He has the perfect amount of jokes and somber moments to keep him engaging, and Billy Crystal shows a great range here by keeping Mike light and lovable, but also being able to get emotional and still be believable. A beautiful movie with a simple story and great character development, Monsters University is one that you should totally check out. Nowadays, superhero movies are a dime a dozen, and I am 100% fine with that. Well, for the most part. However, back when this movie came out, Spider-Man and the X-Men films had been the only successful superhero movies in about 15 years, and before that we seemed to only get a good one every decade or so. There's some very good writing in this. They captured what it's like to have a secret identity, something kind of lacking in most of today's superhero movies.
I am Iron Man.
And they also seem to have a good handle on a family dynamic, especially a family where no one is really happy with where they are in life, in which they could just be accepted and do what they love to do. There's also one of the best Pixar villains in this movie in Syndrome. While his backstory is as cliché as they come, he's still well written and interesting, and brilliantly performed by Jason Lee. There's also great animation. The effects are so good. We have fire, explosions, water, snow and ice, deep jungles, clothing, and hair, all of which Pixar was finally starting to perfect. The very stylized character designs also translate very well into computer animation, and can cover up the fact that we really couldn't make humans look very good back then. And to be honest, we're still kind of struggling. In 2014, it was announced that the long-awaited sequel would finally be made, and I'm both excited and scared that they'll screw it up. I've seen Brad Bird's other animated movies, and to be honest, I find them incredibly boring. And let's not forget about Tomorrowland. Plus, with Marvel making such great sequels with connected universes, The Incredibles 2 is a little late to the party. But oh well. Whether the sequel works or not, the original helped pave the way for the current superhero boom, and for that, I am eternally grateful. Yes, the seemingly most forgotten Pixar film is in my top 3. Why? Because it's innocent, wholesome, and just plain fun. But before I even start on the actual movie, let me get this out of the way. Yes, I do genuinely believe that DreamWorks stole the idea from this for Ants. It's a very long story to talk about here, but I highly recommend the video about the subject by the Super Carlin brothers, and I'll put a link to it in the description. Now that all that's out of the way, let's examine the film. For starters, the animation, especially for 1998, was excellent and actually still holds up pretty well. Because Toy Story made so much money, this film had a much better budget, and because of this, they were able to improve their animation a lot. They have an entire sequence that takes place in the rain from the perspective of insects. Water can still be tricky for some studios, so to be able to pull it off like that is pretty impressive. Once again, this is a simple plot comprised of several different plot ideas we've seen before. the innovative dork who isn't appreciated but just wants to help, the gang that terrorizes a small town, the kid from the small town heading to the big city, the misunderstanding where the group isn't who the protagonist thinks they are, and the liar revealed story. However, even with that, the movie's incredibly charming, and this is totally due to the cast of characters. The main character, Flick, is played by Dave Foley, who has a very unique and recognizable voice and an endearing delivery. Pixar loves him so much that he's actually also in Monsters University as well as the Prep and Landing Christmas specials. And where Mike is my favorite Pixar character, Flick is easily my second favorite. I'm just a sucker for underdog nerds, I guess. I also love the group of circus bugs. They all have individual personalities and have a great dynamic together, which is very fun to watch. And Kevin Spacey is the villain. Need I say more? While it may seem small and forgettable, I think everyone should give it the attention it deserves. Finding Nemo, in my opinion, is just about as perfect as you can make a movie. Even though no movie is perfect, this comes ridiculously close. This comes from back in the day when Pixar could be heartbreaking, but didn't actually, rip your heart out, chew it up, spit it out, and show it to you. This movie has some of the best animation and writing I have ever seen in my entire life. The animation, from my perspective, is the best and most innovative animation in a single movie. While each Pixar movie had better and better animation, and while they are probably better looking films out there now, this did the most in terms of improving and perfecting the craft. The particles in the water, the amount of detail in the coral reefs, the movement of the fins. For goodness sake, the animators had to all take marine biology courses before they started to work on the movie. But it's the writing that is beyond brilliant. I actually wrote a whole paper about this in school just last semester, and while I always thought the film was great, after I wrote it all down, it really sunk in just how amazing it is. We have a father and son who have a strained relationship and get split up from each other. How can they become closer over the course of the movie if they're hundreds of miles away from each other? You give the father a surrogate child, the child a surrogate father, and put them in situations where they learn that they were wrong and they need to appreciate the other person and what they do for them. Saying it like that, it almost sounds easy, but to make it all work this well and be so deep is just insane. I know I could never write something as astounding as this. If I was asked what movie I think everyone should see no matter what, Finding Nemo would be my answer. Now, I'm sure there's a question in all of your minds right now. If Finding Nemo was so wonderful, why isn't it my number one? Well, if the rest of the list hasn't tipped you off yet, I prefer the light-hearted fare to the depressing, deep stuff. I have to be really in the mood for certain levels of emotion. Finding Nemo has just a little too much for me to be able to put it on all the time. While Monsters, Inc. might have a bittersweet ending, I could watch it any time, day or night. As with Monsters University, Mike is my favorite character, and I really like his and Sully's relationship. It's not like in the Star Wars prequels where we're just told they're best friends and that we need to accept it. Here, it really does feel like they've known each other for years, and I think that's all thanks to John Goodman and Billy Crystal's performances. By the end of the movie, you genuinely feel like they've overcome obstacles together the way best friends would in real life. I also really feel the connection between Sully and Boo. It's not just a simple, oh, she's cute and he thinks she's endearing, therefore we have to accept that they're close kind of thing. We can actually feel how close they are. They also do a good job making Sully and Mike both sympathetic. You can totally see how Sully gets close to this little girl, and you understand why he'd want to make sure she gets home safely. But you also see why Mike just wants to get rid of her as soon as possible because of the world they live in. Again, it's the writing of the characters that sucks me into these worlds, and the plots are just secondary. If you have characters that are interesting, relatable, and believable, your audience should follow them no matter what the plot is. With all that and more, Monsters, Inc. cements its place as my favorite Pixar movie of all time. I know, there's not a single Toy Story movie on here, and Inside Out's not on here either, which seem to be a lot of people's favorites. Just to briefly explain, I like the first Toy Story. I've never raved about it quite as much as other people. I understand how amazing and innovative it was. I totally understand the mark it made in cinema. But overall, it's just not one I'll pop in a lot. But it's good. I love Toy Story 2. That was this close to being 5, but I don't watch it as often. You gotta weigh things like that. Another one, Up. Brilliant, great movie. Again, way too depressing for me to watch all the time. I'm just not gonna do that. And finally, I genuinely hate Toy Story 3 and Inside Out. And I know that if you didn't hate me already, now you probably do, because it was probably your favorite. It seems to be the odds are your top two in some configuration include Toy Story 3 and or Inside Out. That just seems to be how it is nowadays, and I don't understand it. But I want to explain my position, just kind of say why these weren't on here, because it would take way too much detail to just finish up here. So, with my very next video, I'm starting a new series called Unpopular Opinions, where I talk about, you guessed it, my unpopular opinions, such as I hate Toy Story 3 and Inside Out. The first one will be just why I hate Toy Story 3, and I'm gonna write it out, make sure it's not just a bunch of ramblings against the movie, because that's not fair. I want to give actual reasons that I have, this critical thinking of why I don't understand why people love it so much. Same thing with Inside Out. I don't get it. Um, I just don't. But I'll go more into that down the line. So I hope you will stick around for that and not, be too upset or offended by this or anything, because people seem to take their Pixar very seriously, and if there's a list that doesn't have those on there, it's like I've seen things happen. So, not that I think you guys will do that. But anyway, thank you for sticking around this long for those that did. I really do hope you'll be back soon. Hopefully by Monday is what I'm hoping for this Toy Story 3 video. And then after that, I will not directly do the Inside Out one. I'm actually planning another Riff Tracks video, because I have a fun idea for those coming up. So anyway, thank you guys. I love you all. Hope you still love me after this. I will see you guys later.